Hey, it's Kim. Welcome to today's video. I'm going to be showing you a flip of my planner. I was trying to think of a better word, but it's really just a flip of my planner. This was actually requested after my video that I did showing the daily pages and how I use them and how they relate to my weekly layouts. I was asked to show a flip, kind of how I'm using it, I guess over a few months, to give you a bit more of a perspective of what goes into my planning system and how I'm using the cut down standard size Hobonichi Cousin. So like I mentioned previously, it's really great, you know, to see how people set up their planners, like if I'm planning for the month ahead or I'm setting it up like a plan with me. But I also find it extremely interesting to see how it's actually used. So more of an after the pen type of view. So that's what I'm going to give you today. That last video where I covered all of my daily pages, that was for the month of January. So right now, in this video, I'm going to flip you through February through April. So it's February, March, April. Yeah. So I'll flip you through those 3 months. And originally, I wasn't sure if I wanted to do like the month layout, then the first week, and then the days within that week, and then week number 2 and the days within that week. I don't think so. I'm just going to go in the order that the Hobonichi Cousin is laid out. If you want any background information on my system and what it's comprised of, I do have a few videos. You can check out my planner playlist, which I have linked up in the cards. Also, anything related to any kind of deco or what else I'm using inside of this planner cover, you can check that out there. So, like I said, we're going to start from February. So the monthlies that I've used for since February, they're pretty straightforward. I typically just will put in appointment information, and that's basically it. Yeah, appointment information. Sometimes I will put in a few notes or information that I might want to refer back to later. Like when I have my car service, I put it here. If I want to reflect back on exactly what date that occurred. So I found myself doing that a lot more often as the months progressed. So that's how I'm using this monthly layout a little bit differently than I previously used a monthly layout in the past. So I am noting some things after the fact, like maybe what happened when we went to the doctor, or additional information that I might want to refer back to at a later date. So that's the March layout. And then here's last month, which was April. And it doesn't look too full, and that's okay. Oh, in March, I actually started using a different ink color to make those notes that I wanted to stand out a little bit differently from just the regular scheduling that I had going on. So for each month, I just picked a corresponding ink color to use to highlight a few things that I wanted to point out. And then this is May. This is our current month. Pretty bare. So now I'll take you and give you a look through the weeks. And the weeklies have sort of evolved for me. So originally I was using it, or I still am, but originally the plan was to use this section here as like a timetable for meetings and appointments. And then up here I was using for day-specific events, and then down here some lists or information regarding to maybe like some tasks that I have to figure out or I have to get done for the week, errands that I want to make, and then I write down here the dinners that we have each day. And on this week in particular, I use a little sticky notes for ideas of what dinners I wanted to do for the week, and then I don't write them down until we actually have them, because I don't like to cross things out, because things, you know, plans change. So that's what I do there at the bottom. And up at the top, I'll put in my workouts after the fact. So after the workout's been completed, I'll document what the workout was for that day. And this is information that I like to go back to and reference in future weeks, especially the dinners, because I want to make sure we're not repeating the same things over and over. So as I flip through, you'll see that the weekly layouts are pretty much used the same. I feel like I'm starting to find a bit more of a flow in how I like the weekly layouts to look. I don't like them to look too empty. I like them to look nicely filled in like this one. This is a good example of that. I don't like a ton of deco. Sometimes it feels like too much, or I get tired of it as the week goes on. And I do notice that at times, and I guess it depends what's going on in my life, I'll start the week out strong, and then towards the end of the week, I'm not really documenting or noting anything that I did during the week, aside from appointments that stand out. This one was one of my favorite weekly layouts, and I'm not entirely sure why. I do like the amount of deco on the page, but I also do like the addition of the darker marker that I use to note certain items, or I actually used it to note time blocks where specific things were happening. So I do like this weekly layout. And then as we continue, this was another week where I just wasn't documenting anything. It was my vacation week. I was going on vacation towards the end of the week, and you can clearly tell I was just like checked out of life mentally in the beginning of the week. Same for this one. This was when I came back kind of like midweek, and I just wasn't into it. So I really didn't document a whole lot. And then this one, I went full steam with filling in a whole lot on the weekly layout. And this weekly layout I really do like. I made it a point to fill in every single section down here at the bottom. I use a thicker washi strip right here to separate the timetable from my list, and still using the same format with the workouts up at the top and the dinners down at the bottom. And then something else that I did on the weekly layout, or I started to do, as I was setting up the weekly, I started to define 3 priorities that I wanted to do for each day. So instead of using this top thing or this top section necessarily for day specific events, whereas, you know, there may be some days where there's nothing going on, I decided to use it, or I actually started that here. I decided to use it to define priorities for that day. A lot of times I find I go through phases where I like to set up priorities for each day. It helps me to feel productive, but at the same time it helps me to not put too much on my plate for each day. I have to like limit myself, or by the time Wednesday gets here, I'm completely wiped out for the rest of the week because I filled in way too much stuff, way too many tasks at the beginning of the week. So I've learned about myself that I have to kind of pace myself, and I set up some specific priorities for each day, and if I have extra time when I can complete other things, I might. Normally I won't. I'll just move something to a different day if it comes up, but my main priorities are to tackle those 3 items. So this week, I like this one so much. I basically did the exact same thing on this week, and again filled in the entire spread. So I tried to make use of everything on the spread. And I don't know if you'll notice, I do note time blocking and things that happen during the day, but I also will put in a few comments about what happened during that day. Like if I had a migraine, if it was a terrible day, if we got the gutters clean that day. So I do make use of the space, and I like to fill it in to add in just details about what was going on for that day. This is actually the current week, and I set this up in my May plan with me, and that was actually before I ever did these 2 weeklies. So this gives you an idea of why I don't like to set up my weeklies ahead of time. I feel like my planning system or my planning style kind of evolves a little bit. So even though it's the same framework, I might just want to tweak it a bit. Whereas like I'm filling in a whole lot more information on these weekly layouts than I was previously. And that is something that I like to continue to do. But because I had already set this one up for May when I did the May plan with me, it's laid out a little bit different. So we'll see if I can kind of fill it in the same way that I did the weeks past. And then this week, I did the same thing with the previous 2 weeks. So I used the thicker washi strips down at the bottom, and then the washi up at the top, all the way up at the top. So I'll probably lay that out similar to this. So those are our weeklies up until now. And then the dailies stay the same. The same as what you've seen previously. I do have what I call the monthly collections. So the first few pages in the beginning of those dailies has my tracker, my one line a day, a nice calendar page from Sterling Ink, and then my February or monthly task list. And then I get into my dailies. So my dailies will sometimes be 1 day on a page. Sometimes it'll be like 3 days on a page. I really don't have any hard and fast rules about how I like to have it laid out. I do notice that when I'm going through my daily pages, I kind of like to separate the items that I might add as notes. For example, so this was a pen test page, and I put this vellum over top of it to kind of mask it or to kind of hide it. It doesn't do a great job at it, but for whatever reason, as I'm flipping through my pages where I kind of want everything to look similar, this sort of helps to cover up those notes pages that aren't dailies. And I do this continuously throughout my daily pages. So we'll get to the next one. I think there was like a packing list or something somewhere. Oh, I bought some skincare items and I wanted to write down the things that I purchased. So I used this vellum. This one's from Paper Test Designs. It's a freebie. And I just printed that out on vellum and used it to kind of cover that note page and also to indicate to myself that it's a note page. And then I continued on through. So each month starts again with the collection of pages with the tracker and the one line a day and the monthly task list. And then it goes on to the next month. And throughout the month, like this one, I have an idea for a spread that I wanted to create on this page. So I use this little sticky note tape to make a note of what I want to put on this spread for when I do come back and add it there. Same thing here. And I had already tipped in the vellum that's going to cover up that note. So that's pretty much how I use my daily pages. And I just wanted to provide an overview of how I'm using the standard size Hobonichi Cousin, and especially how I'm using the daily pages but not in a dated format. So again, we're starting with March, and we have the collection, the monthly collection for March. And then on this page I have 4 dailies or 4-day task lists on one page. And throughout all of the dailies I also do have my weekly reviews where I'll cover some accomplishments and challenges for the week, my goal progress, my favorite moment, and then a summary for the week. It kind of helps me to remember what the heck happened. I feel like sometimes life gets away from you and you don't realize what happened or what was going on, especially as it relates to goals. So I like to use that so I can kind of check in on my goals very often, or at least frequently enough so that I can see when to make any changes or when to make any adjustments. And another thing that I started to do, and this is what, in March, I started to add in other colors. I don't like to use anything besides black ink on my daily pages. I don't know why. I just don't like to. But here on this particular day, I was actually testing out some new inks that I got in different pens, and I wanted to write things down and see how they looked. And then that gave me the idea to do this going forward. So if there are notes that I want to add to a specific daily layout, I'll add them in there with the other color pen. And I'll see if I can find you. Oh, here's an example. So I wanted to write down my plant chores for this day. So I used a different color, like a darker blue ink. Actually, that is 54th Massachusetts by Noodlers, if you're interested. So I just wanted to use a different color ink. And here you can see my weekly review was a different layout because I just wanted to squeeze it in on that page. I didn't want to use a separate page for it. So things will shift and adjust. And here are my collection pages for April. Oh, that's an April calendar I just tucked in there. And then we get into the dailies. And of course I always use some sticky notes so I can move those around my planner whenever and wherever I need to. And I'll add deco to the pages sometimes when I'm setting the pages up, but normally I do it after the fact. So I'll do it maybe at the end of the week, and I'll go back and look through the dailies and see where I can add a few stickers or a little bit of deco to kind of jazz it up a bit. So this will be a good example of a page that I would cover with vellum. I just haven't done that yet. And I'll use the vellum that came with the April Sterling ink kit. So I'll just cut it out and stick it in there to cover up this page. So these are the dailies, and they're working extremely well for me. It feels comfortable using the system in this way. It feels good to me. And it doesn't feel like something I want to change anytime soon, which is, I think that's saying a lot. If you're a planner kind of person, we tend to change things up pretty frequently, pretty often. But I'm comfortable where I am right now, and I'm loving it. So this was the end of April, and because I did the May plan with me before April was finished, I wasn't sure how many pages I was going to need. So this is a good example of that. So if I did May, let's say like during the last week of April, I would have likely started it here instead of allowing myself a few extra pages. But since I was doing it early, I do have these extra pages, which I'm going to note with a sticky note so that I know to come back and use these pages if I need to write down any notes. And this is the one I want to use to do it. That's just a sticky note that I have. Where do I want this? Maybe up top. A sticky note I have for some ideas for things for us to do in the summer. But I know I'm going to be moving that sticky note around. But I wanted to mark off these blank pages, so I'll come back and use those up first before using blank pages further in the book. And then here are my May collection of pages. Same thing, tracker, 1 line a day. Task list, which I haven't even filled in yet. And then my dailies. I'm here on the 2nd. So that's a look at how I'm using all of the pages in my planner and how I filled them in so far, giving you a full after the pen view over the span of 3 months. The system has been very functional for me, and I hope that you found this little flip helpful in showing you as well how this standard size Hobonichi Cousin can be functional for you as well. Whether or not you use actually this size or this book, but just showing you how monthlies, weeklies, and dailies can be functional when used together. If you have any questions, please feel free to drop them down below. And I thank you so much for watching today's video. I'll see you in the next one.